Ever since I said ex-YouTuber is a good friend of mine, I've been subjected to fan art, fan fiction, shipping that honestly I think is going to get more detailed and more frequent and accepted when time goes on, and that's okay. But if there's any show that's going to take that concept and make a great episode out of it, it sure is going to be Gumball. Ayo, what is up everyone? It is the Alpha J of the Alpha J Show, and today we're going to talk about The Shippening from Season 6 of The Amazing World of Gumball. So let's get into it. This review is brought to you guys thanks to Amino. And if you guys don't know, Amino is a great app that I use very often, and it's full of different communities for all types of fandoms and interests that you may have. Today I want to shine light on the Gumball Amino. As you see here, like any other Amino, you can share your thoughts, talk to people who are also interested in Gumball, like this Gumball episode. They actually have a spot for talking about episodes. Take quizzes, participate in polls, chat in real-time public chat rooms, scroll through the featured feed for some of the best content they offer, and so much more. You can even chat with me, as I'm actually in this Amino community, and I have been ever since the last time I talked about this awesome community. The best part is that it's a free app with a large community and over 1 million different Aminos. So if you want to check it out, the link is in the description and my pinned comment. So let them know that I sent you over. We get to see the Donut Sheriff and his team pull up on this van here. I definitely enjoy the first shot of this episode, how it immediately takes you into the action. Centering on this mysterious figure and his van, we learn that he has some pretty destructive and supernatural stuff there. But this being a Gumball episode, we also get some neat comedy.
License, please.
Sure, there you go.
That's a doctor's license.
Yes, that'll be $100.
It actually reminds me of a lot of the comedy I remember from the earlier seasons. I remember making a small pick that the later seasons, particularly season 5 and 6, seem to lean towards a different type of humor, more meta, more blatant subversion based. I can't really put my finger on it. But I definitely do enjoy the lighthearted comedy from Gumball. I think it works just as well. I say this as a coffee cup gets destroyed by lightning, but my point is, the dark humor should be dark in comparison to the other jokes. I think that's why some of the most dark jokes in The Amazing World of Gumball work.
I think you'll find all the right paperwork in here.
There's no paperwork here. It's just thousands of dollars. We're taking you downtown.
No, wait, let me have the money. I want to buy some Nintendo games.
Sir, he's getting away!
Or maybe he's making a U-turn so he can take the correct exit.
Wait, so that says Canada borders. Am I missing something? That person drove towards that sign, so they're driving towards the Canada border. Does that mean Gumball is Elmore in? No. Anyway, we see Sarah, a character I often don't like due to the realistic creepiness that generally takes me out of the episode, or just the fact that some of the episodes she's in generally seem to be quite flat, writing-wise anyway. I talked about her in length in my first review ever, but more in-depth in my extra discussion, so I'd most likely check out the latter, because my first video isn't particularly good with what I want to explain well. And if she was any slower, she'd be ironed out by that car. Waffle iron. Also, a foreign language t-shirt because anime fan. She gets this book and it has this Cartoon Network logo in front of it. Now, the show has done meta before, and they always seem to take it to a new level each time, with episodes like The Rerun, for example. So I was very curious to see how this episode was going to turn out. Now, because Sarah is Sarah, she ends up shipping people, but not without setting the atmosphere first. Now, this wouldn't be the first time that what she wrote became a reality in Elmore. Actually, I think there's multiple times. You have the fan, in which she revealed herself to be an obsessive stalker who is the way she is because she's lonely. And Gumball and Darwin act out her fantasy to make her feel better. You also have the comic where this was raised to 10 times as much, where she would write out a much more detailed version of a superhero version of Gumball, to the point where even he became a fan of what she made him out to be. I guess I was never really too enthralled by Sarah's brand of wacky. She tends to not really be funny, and majority of her slapstick just is the same joke of her being knocked out of her cone or whatever. Besides that, it seems to be a lot of cringe comedy, like the Stalker song in The Fan, or whatever funny thing she did in the sweaters that doesn't exist because she really wasn't funny in the sweaters. Maybe I'm personally burnt out from that type of humor. Maybe all the people who think they're comedians and use self-deprecation and cringe comedy all over the internet has gotten to me. Maybe I can't even enjoy that type of humor. But then I think about the hug and the awkwardness, other episodes of Gumball, which were around the same time, which have some some of the best cringe comedy that I've seen in a while. However, in those episodes, because everything was driven up to 99x, I found it to be ridiculous, but in a good way. I genuinely enjoy those episodes. However, then when Sarah tries it, it doesn't come across wacky, exaggerated, over the top, or something ridiculous. It actually comes across quite realistic. However, in this episode, she actually turns it around, and I think this is the first episode where she plays a major or pretty significant part, and I enjoy it. The story she makes up follows the Ben Beauclerc school of no really. When Sarah says the sun is rising over Elmore, no really, the sun is rising over Elmore. When Sarah says something is intoxicating in the air, no really, something is intoxicating in the air. But unlike the other famous school of a certain type of person who I can't remember right now, this joke is generally done quite well with enough variation to make it seem pretty fine.
Did it hurt? Ellen said. Not as much as all these years of yearning for you. Without further ado, they kissed, their lips crashing into each other.
Now we get to one of the many couples that have never really shown in a show that their chemistry would deem them a good couple within the show. I think the writers cleverly make that comedic jab at the fact that this is done often in media by its fandom. I think at some point many of us just thought, hey, so-and-so and so-and-so should be together, despite them having no significant screen time together to be able to really see how that would go. It actually reminds me how some people ship Remy, Bucks Aplenty, and Trixie from the Fairly Odd Parents, despite there being many problems and many issues that would come up with that. Now, because chaos needs a straight man or a straight duo, Gumball and Darwin react quite casually to a pretty big cheating moment. Although this wouldn't be the first time that this couple had cheating involved in whatever they were doing. And I know what you're thinking. I keep saying this reminds me of X, similar to how other series like SpongeBob, Family Guy, The Simpsons, Teen Titans Go, they seem to have certain repeating moments. But I feel like because this episode at its core, its concept is fresh, I think it's okay here. However, the stakes are raised when again, two more people who have never really had that much screen time together are heavily in love. I just think the idea is so ridiculous, and that's what makes it work well. I mean, if you're gonna comment on shipping, make the most out of the ships. Make the most ridiculous couples ever, because it'll drive the point home so much more. Plus, we already had a couple of legitimate romance stories. Just check my verses, the Shell versus the Matchmaker. So let's get back to the comedy.
Oh, Lawrence, I thought you'd never...
Oh my. Well, they really went there. What do I say to that? Besides, the fact that this is the third time that Larry has tried to propose to her and it failed. Fun fact, there is a fourth time if you count this Flickr account, which I'm not 100% sure is official. The wiki states that it's official, but I can't really find any source that would say it's official beyond that, and the wiki didn't state any in its references. But assuming that it is official, there is a photo within that Flickr account, which is named Anais' Flickr for any of you who wants to search this particular account up, where Larry did try to propose to her again and it failed. So there is technically 4 times if this is official. And it appears official because those photos look pretty genuine. Now, if we're going to ship, let the man get married, please. He has to deal with enough with everyone relying on him and his multiple jobs. But they go even farther in this episode, messing with marriages. Mr. Robinson and Banana Joe's mother, Banana Barbara, being shipped because Tenshin Rocky approaches them, and this actually isn't the first time Gumball and Darwin had to save Rocky from finding out about a potentially rocky marriage that his parents have. There was another episode where Gumball and Darwin found Rocky's mom on a dating site. Although Darwin is concerned about all of these newfound couples, with one look at Tobias kissing well a reflection of himself, Gumball doesn't think too much about it. However, we get to one of the main points of discussion around the show.
Hi! I'm your cousin, Zachariah Lopez Kirby! I have a hyper mood and I like paragliding and ducks! I hate arguments and itchy hats. And I'm Zachariah's girlfriend, Bexy. It's short for Alexandra. Backstory, I was raised by my uncle, Timothy, and his twin dogs, Ramir and Castro. Catchphrase, this bird is out of control! Okay.
Now, some people may seem to enjoy the fact that this show seems to be very ultra aware of itself, its fans, and what the fans think about the show. They would generally praise the show for being very clever and having the ability to maintain this sort of freshness. And some people have even spoiled this exact scene with no context on Twitter, which, if I am to look on the positive side, would lead curious eyes to actually watch the entire episode in full. I wouldn't need to tell you that the show generally has a good grasp on commentary, but other people would call this mocking, and think because it is poking fun at the idea of taking an OP that doesn't really look good in design, you're essentially passing judgment, and pretty much making this episode as a way to, quote, make fun of children who watch and enjoy your show, who may not understand your mockery, but you don't even ask permission before using these characters, end quote. Now, as a creator of videos, I have also been on the end of people generally taking something I did and morphing my intentions into being malicious, like how some people think I was homophobic because of my L is for love review when that isn't the case at all, or that because I state that the wiki calls Trip, a character in King of the Hill, specifically my Pygmalion review, a schizophrenic, and I personally think he's a psychopath, that I am linking them together, when that also isn't the case. I do applaud Ben for handling the situation well, because it is clear as day that if anything, he is making fun of the ridiculousness of the characters on his own show. The concept of the OP was not to make fun of people making really crazy and out there characters, but to show that people really do take the concept of Gumball and shift it into various places, making the show much weirder, unique, and wackier than he could ever. The fact that he plays the entire concept of a main character meeting an altered version of themselves straight, having Gumball and Darwin be essentially weirded out by the two, is actually less insulting than you would think. Ask yourself, how else would these characters view what is pretty much an out there version of themselves? It would obviously be this way. In fact, if anything, having those OPs in here is more of a homage to people using Gumball as an inspiration to start drawing, as clearly with the similar design it doesn't look like the worst thing in the world when you put it through effects used to make the actual show. Does anyone remember when Dexter used to take inspiration from a young demographic? And to any other creator that this may happen to, just calmly explain your intentions. Maybe sometimes people take it the wrong way, but I would say that a lot of people, a good portion of them, could be pretty open to hearing your side. And the people who you can't convince weren't really trying to be convinced to your side anyway. The one thing you should never do is condescend or treat them as if they're an idiot for getting pretty much a miscommunication error from your own video. And that's what I personally try to do myself, at least now. If they still try to pitchfork you, just keep doing you, because just like the people who make the OCs, the fan fictions, or even review videos like I do, or any videos at all, we actually have an inspiration, and this episode did more to celebrate that than to mock it any day. Now, as far as permission goes, just know that in the US at least, you can take an intellectual property, make a parody of it, and be protected under fair use if you do it correctly. So even with that accusation, this entire tweet, I'm sorry, you're just not in the right here in my opinion. So just because this is Gumball and we cannot stop there, we get Gumball, or a version of Gumball, being shipped with Carrie, or a version of Carrie. Although we never really get to see Carrie in this episode unless she's full ghost, this leads to a very important question that the episode doesn't blatantly answer. We know that Sarah is the one making all of these changes, so if this is true, that means that she created totally new characters. So if the book can create characters, why do we now see this? Why do we now see that you can alter a being incredibly? You would think that someone like Sarah would self-insert herself into the story as a less flawed individual that makes whomever she's crushing on want her immensely. And this also comes back later, and I'll get to that soon. That's the only facet of shipping that this episode doesn't touch, which is a shame. But then we get this.
And it looks like I didn't stop at women. I agree. I always thought I was the one wearing the pants in this relationship.
Oh man, take a picture because that better not last long. But speaking of anime, this episode could be a reference to Death Note. Full disclosure, I don't watch Death Note, but from what I've searched on the internet and from what I've watched, I could see a connection there. Maybe someone in the comments below can explain it a little bit better. However, because shipping and couples are not new to this world, at least from Gumball's perspective, he knows that Sarah must be behind all of this. Look how angry she is while she writes. Ew.
I was just writing some non-canon AT and AR ships, the odd one-shot here and there, and a bit of OOC, some OC drawings of course, but mostly OTP squeeze and fan service.
Oh my god, go outside! Get some fresh air, talk to another human being!
Well, just take a look at what happened when you wrote in it.
Wait! I'm an otaku. The light could kill me.
No. Take off her glasses. Fill this cone's corneas with enough god rays to kill her tenfold. But in all seriousness, she realizes that the book she randomly got and started to write in for some reason became canon within the universe. Now, before she can fix everything back, the police who are chasing the other person who we never really get to see get arrested, so let's assume that he got away, are on her doorstep. Now again, pretty major pick, but the fact that the book could create life would essentially prove to be quite helpful now. just write the cops into chasing another criminal. That will give you enough time to make this turn back to normal, but what do I know, you know? It has been proven that you cannot burn, rip, or crumble up the paper, thus removing what's on it, because it will still be canon. If that's a pencil, have you tried erasing? If that's a pen, have you tried whiteout? I don't know. I guess I'm not sure how to respond to the fact that this tiny facet about the book being able to create life is tossed aside, but I guess I'm not supposed to think about that because it would make the story much more solvable.
Mr. Small looked at Larry and said, "It's not you, Larry, it's me." No, wait, no.
I guess I'm also not supposed to think about the fact that an eraser sound was heard, and thus the decision Gumball made was reversed. But pretty much like earlier when Sarah was writing her stories, they use here the literal version of what they write again, and it works quite well still.
What? You think you can just lock 3 people in a room and pressure them to keep coming up with gold? Eventually, they'll start repeating material.
That's just the thing too, because I know for all of the writers who work on not just this show, but any cartoon, they have a small amount of time to come up with a lot of material. Writing interesting reviews isn't a piece of cake either. Yes, I've been pretty harsh on season 5 and 6 off YouTube, of course, but I still give the show a chance because The Amazing World of Gumball is one of my favorite shows of all time because of what it managed to pull off in the early seasons. I think what I'm going through is a much lesser version of the later seasons of SpongeBob. You know, pre-season 9. But I won't give up on the series, and I'm glad I didn't because I wouldn't have episodes like this to enjoy. Shoot, I still recommend the later seasons of Gumball, even though I personally don't like the season all that much. That is how much of a fan I am of the entire show. So I empathize with that. So with not a lot of time left, the police are coming up the door and we get the scene here.
I love you, Sarah.
Me too. And without further ado, Gumball and Darwin kissed Sarah, but in the end, none of this mattered because it was all just fan fiction.
Alright, you got your kiss. Hooray, good job. Now let's see Larry and that girl get married. That would be an incredible episode. Now, of course, the kiss had nothing to do with the show being turned back to normal, but I guess the book is also in Sarah's possession now. It actually reminds me of that tinfoil hat Gumball had back in season 1 that gave him incredible luck. The show just knows how to control chaos over the range of an entire universe. The episode ends with Sarah admitting that the kiss had nothing to do with it, and if you don't mind, let me take that book real quick. Alright, what should I write? Sarah was then filled with enough sunlight that it broke through her glasses and pierced through her cone. She became a shell of her former self, burning alive in front of Gumball and Darwin before all that was left from her was the flaky bits of her McDonald's Happy Meal lipstick and the anime book that she got off an auction after an all-nighter on Weebay. Not eBay, Weebay. This wasn't a fan fiction and she was no longer seen in any episode ever. She was gone, forever, and everyone lived happily ever after. Alright, here you go. Take the book back. And that was The Shippening. I love this episode, and this has to be my favorite so far in season 6. I definitely enjoyed a parody of fanfiction, OCs, and shipping, and making it into a really funny episode. I've also been past due for a review on Gumball, and trust me, I have a lot more to go, but I want to know what you think. Did you enjoy this episode if you've seen it yet? Let me know in the comments down below. Special thanks to the patrons that support this panda in the month of April. Make sure to follow me at Twitter. Do not follow at Twitter. Follow at the ALPHAJ Show. And go into my request video for any other topic you think I should cover. And if you really like this video, you should definitely check out my entire Gumball playlist for more reviews like this. Or my collab with a good friend of mine, the one and only CR Martin, another reviewer of Gumball, in which we both talk about the Ollie, if you've already seen all of my Gumball videos. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys next time. I hope your time is well spent, and Alpha out.